Hey guys, it's Kat and I'm back today for another First Impressions palette review. So I said in my last one, which was the Viseart Liaison palette, that I wanted to do sort of like maybe one a week in May because I've got a pile of unused palettes that I really want to use. So that's sort of what I'm doing. If you're new to this series, what I essentially do is I take a palette that I've never used before, I use it for the first time on camera, I swatch it, I show close-ups, I do all that kind of stuff, and then I check back over a period of about anywhere from 4 to 7 days with the looks that I've created and sort of my thoughts as I'm using the palette, and then I conclude at the end what I think about the palette. So I've got a pile of palettes. I want to get through a few, but one that I was really excited to use was this one from Coloured Raine. So this is a palette that was on my radar for quite some time. When it was first shown, I was like, oh, that's a me palette. I really want that palette. But I was like, no, you're not buying any more palettes until you get around to reviewing the ones you have. So I was very lucky that I was actually sent this for review. So around the time that this had released, Glam Raider, which is an Australian makeup online store, they're really good and they are around where I live, so I know them personally. They're really great people. They started stocking Coloured Raine, and we got at Beauty News, we got a little PR pack that had a few palettes in it. So Hayley and I divvied them up. I got to take this one and I'm very excited to use it. So if you were wanting to check out Coloured Raine, there are a few stockists available worldwide. The Australian one is Glam Raider, but I'll link a few in the description box. So thank you, Glam Raider, for this. This is great. I'm so glad I finally get to use it. All right, so the palette comes in a slip. You take the slip off and it's got the same design, but it's got more details on the back. So it looks like all eyeshadows have a different formula, so that's interesting, and it is cruelty-free. This is a 9-pan palette. It contains 12.5 grams of product, and the inside of the palette looks like this. So there is a mirror. It's got like a little sort of cover on it at the moment, and it's a 9-pan palette, and the reason why, I'm sure you can guess that I really like this, it's got some murky greens, which I adore. I love a teal, and I really like these cool tone shades. These cool tone shades I'm really excited for. It's got like your more traditional gold. Yeah, that's like a metallic gold. Then you almost have like a metallic yellow. You have more of a muted sort of orange matte. And I'll show a close-up of this soon, but I wouldn't call this one like a red. I'd say it's more like a blood orange. So it's more of a reddy orange metallic. So you have a few mattes and then you have a few metallics. So you have sort of like a colourful warm row, a sort of colourful greeny blue row, and then more of your muted row. And I don't know, I find this really, really intriguing. So normally if I saw a palette like this, I would want to jump into the murky greens. I'd want to jump into the teal. Like, they look really, really inspiring. But to demonstrate this, I might actually use that bottom row because today is actually supposed to be, I wasn't supposed to start filming today. I was like, I'm going to have a day off where I'm just going to do stuff that I need to do. I've got a back x-ray booked in for like 2 hours. So I don't want to wear like the greens and the bright colors. I'll do that like tomorrow where I'm filming for Beauty News. I just want to hit up sort of that bottom row and just demonstrate what the formula is sort of like. I might, you know, dip into that orange color as well if I need to use it to blend out a look. But yeah, I can see some cool color stories in here that I'm really wanting to use. Like, I'd probably want to use that quad. I'd want to use like that quad. So I think this palette review might go for quite a few days while I sort of test these out. All right, so that's a close-up of the palette. You can see it's got some foiled bits, some matte bits, but it's a cardboard palette. And those are the details on the back. It's sort of hard to capture all the shadow shades at once. You can see how intense that sort of yellow gold is. There's that sort of orange, that beautiful, I don't know, orangey red coral shade. You've got the matte teal. You've got the sort of grassy army greens, the murky matte there. You have these beautiful shades down the bottom. So this is more of your, yeah, gold, light gold. This one looks like it's almost got some green and purple shimmer in it. I'm not too sure, but I'm really excited to use this one today. I want to use this one today as well. All right, let's start with finger swatches on bare arm. Something I've noticed from picking up the shimmers, they feel quite moist. They've got a lot of sort of dimethicone or a silicone sort of vibe to them where they feel quite almost wet, but they're not wet. And then the matte does feel quite soft, so it picks up quite a lot of product, which is nice. So the first shade here is Toucan. Whoa, that's gorgeous. So this metallic swatches really, really nicely, but sometimes these don't pick up on the brush as well and then deposit on the eye. So I'm really curious to see how these do perform on the eye. We've got the matte. Oh, that's clay. So it's a very pigmented matte. We've got Tigress. Whoa, that's gorgeous as well. That is a beautiful, beautiful shade. We've got the second row here. So we have Congo Basin, which is that murky brown. So this tends to grip on the skin really well, but doesn't seem to apply super smooth. I'm just going to turn this brightness down. Hang on a sec. So hopefully that applies well on the eye. We've got Green Valley, which is that beautiful sort of grass green shimmer shade. And then we have the shade Jungle, which is, once again, you can see that it grips to the skin. It's very pigmented, but to get a nice even amount, you sort of have to build it up. So I'm curious to see how that applies on the eye. All right, last row. And I have to say this shade feels quite firm and it looks almost purple in the pan, but it looks very brown on my finger, but it doesn't look like it picks up much product. So that one's going to be interesting. But we have Lioness. Whoa, that's like a phenomenal foiled gold. It is very, very, very beautiful and like, wow, I look at it. It's blinding. We have Amazon Basin. Whoa, that's beautiful as well. That's like a foiled brown with like a purple, I don't know, cool tone shift going on. That's glorious. And then we have that last one, which doesn't look very good. It's Matriarch. I'm going to build this one up. Oh, there we go. I think it might have had a bit of a sort of, I don't know, it felt like it had a bit of a seal on it. So if you sort of take off the top layer, it picks up a bit better. But look at that. They're gorgeous shades. So this palette has a lot of promise and I can see some really interesting color stories in here. So you can group them by line or you can even sort of mix them up a bit. I'm quite happy to go for this today and do a more sort of less colorful look, but I'm really excited to hit into these, and even that red is really beautiful. I think these look so good. All right, time to apply these shadows for the first time to see how the formula behaves. I'm thinking of going this all over the lid because even though it looks very silver in the pan, it actually has a brown base. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to blend it out a little bit with that, brighten it with a bit of that. So I'm thinking that's what I'll stick to. If I need to delve into any other colors, I will let you know what they are, but that's sort of the game plan. All right, I've already primed my eye with the NARS medium toned primer. Everything else on my face is Project Pan stuff except for my lip product, which is Tony Moly Velvet Lip Tint in the shade in 06. All right, I don't know how these eyeshadows behave, so I'm going in with the Aloe Cosmetics brush. This is sort of just like a flat, it's not like a fluffy brush. It's sort of a mix between a packing brush and a fluffier brush. I think these are really good sort of all-rounder type brushes. And if I don't know the formula, I find these tend to work well with a lot of things. So the shade Amazon Basin is a little bit glittery, a little bit chunky, but it picks up pretty well. So let's see how it applies. Oh, it applies nicely. Look at it. It's a beautiful color. It looks a lot warmer on the eye. It really brings out some of the gold and the brown tones. In the pan, it looks a lot more silver, but it is a beautiful color. This is definitely a color I could wear to the doctors. Good, because that's where I'm going. But otherwise, you know, this is a sort of daily basis, beautiful brown toned shimmer, and that just applied really easily. There's no fallout. You could pack that on if you want. I'm just going to pack a little bit on with my finger just to demonstrate. If you want it a little bit more foiled, if you want to, it seems like when you build it up, you get more of the cool toned element to it, but it's very beautiful. Oh, I sort of want to wear this every day. I love this color. It's beautiful. These are the types of colors that if I just don't know what to wear, I reach for these, and I love this sort of amount of shimmer and sparkle because there's sparkle there and it adds a lot of dimension to the eye, but it's not like overwhelming. It's really, really flattering. All right, with a fluffy brush, this is just from Morphe. I'm picking up that dark browny sort of plummy looking shade. This I think is going to apply a lot more brown like it did in the swatch compared to what it looks like in the pan. It did pick up a lot nicer than when I picked it up originally with my finger. You can see it skips a little bit on the eye. I thought that was going to be a problem with these mattes because they sort of stick to the skin really well, but this is blending out reasonably nicely and it really complements that lid color. But this shade definitely gives you that sort of smoky, shadowy look, and it's quite cool toned. And like I said, it's easier to pick up than I expected from when I first touched it. It seems like the pan was just, I don't know, had like a layer over the top that didn't really allow it to pick up. But when you agitate the pan a bit, it's fine. So you can just see the difference of the shadow in there versus no shadow. All right, so out of curiosity, I just wanted to see how it applies on the lid with a slightly more packing brush. Just see how this shade sort of builds up. I'm just doing a little bit at a time because it is a little bit, like the mattes do feel a little bit powdery, so I'm concerned that there might be a bit of fallout, but this is actually building up quite nicely. All right, one tip would be that with the mattes, definitely like take a little bit at a time because I applied a little bit too much here and you can see that it just doesn't really want to blend out. I've tried blending it with a clean brush. It just sort of wants to stick to the skin a little bit. So if you want a more subtle amount of product, do, you know, really tap off your brush, really make sure you only pick up a small amount, because once you've put it on the eye, it doesn't really want to remove, if you know what I'm saying. So that's that. All right, with a smaller sort of detail brush, I've got that gold sort of foiled shade, that lioness shade, and it is beautiful. I've just picked up the smallest amount. It applies really well on the eye. You can see it just adds that sort of pop of sort of true gold. It's not super, super yellow gold. It's just like nice, soft gold. It's very pretty. So this look definitely didn't need this, but you know, I wanted to try a few shades. All right, here's the eyeshadow. I'm just gonna put some liner on my waterline and curl my lashes and put some mascara and I'll be back. All right, so that is the eye look with some just brown pencil liner in my waterline, just one coat of mascara. I think it's actually a really striking look. It's really bold and vibrant because the eyeshadows were just super easy to build up pigmentation. So there we go. All right, so I seem to have gone the most brown look I possibly could have with this palette, which, you know, it's a thing. I didn't want to wear much color today, but I'm really digging this palette so far. These were so easy to build up. I think the only issue I had was that this sort of grips to the skin and it can be hard to blend. So you just have to be careful with the amount you apply. You might want to set your primer with some like loose powder or something, or a sort of nude color eyeshadow just in the crease to help this like not really stick to the skin and to the primer. But other than that, these applied really beautifully. Yes, I've gone a basic brown look with a colorful palette to begin with, but it was more of a demonstration of how these actually apply. I'm really, really excited I can see it. Look, I feel like this review is going to take me 2 weeks because I can see myself wanting to create a look with this, wanting to create sort of similar to what I've done today, but instead of using more of this color, going with the teal and the brown. I think that'd be gorgeous. I can see myself using these colors. I really want to use these with that sort of gold shade. Maybe even that with that. I can see so many color combinations with this that I want to try. And even though that's great that I can see so much variety in this palette, it's bad because it means that this review is going to be a very long one. It's going to be like first impressions over 10 days. Not quite, hopefully not quite, but I can definitely see myself, you know, like I said, quad here, quad there, quad there, quad there, duo, 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 duo. I can see like even that gold blended out with that. I can see that being a look. Use that as a highlight, use them in rows. I can see some gorgeous stuff happening here. And even though I went the most brown you can possibly go, I really dig this look. This is the kind of look that I think pairs really nicely with a bright lip that I'm wearing today. I like this palette. All right, day number 2, and I have to say I am loving this palette. I reckon, look, if I wanted to, I could extend this video out to like 9 days because I just sort of want to take my makeup off to then apply more colors because it is so fun and easy to apply. So today, my makeup is a lot more bold than it was yesterday, but I was filming beauty news today, whereas yesterday I was getting a back x-ray. So different days, you know. Essentially what I did today was I was going to go in with this suggestion, the color suggestion that I mentioned yesterday, where I was going to put that on the top and that on the bottom. I went to go put that in the crease, and then I realized that it is actually more of, like, it looks, compared to all the colors, it does look quite orange, and it is, but at the same time, it is almost like a burnt orange. It's still a little bit brownish. So I might still put that on the top lid and then put that on the lower lash line. I might do that tomorrow. I'm editing tomorrow, so my makeup doesn't look great. It doesn't bother me, but I put that in the crease and I was like, oh, it's a little bit darker. I want something brighter. So I put that in the crease, put that on the lid. It was so easy to apply, like ridiculously easy. I applied it with a normal brush over a normal primer. I didn't need to use fingers. I didn't need to use a glitter glue. I didn't need to use it wet. It just applied like a dream. There was no fallout. It's a very, very striking. It's a really unique color as well because it's sort of like a red, but it's like a cross between a red, an orange, and a coral. It's a very vibrant, but very flattering, but it's also quite wearable, which is nice. So that's on the top lid, blended out with this guy. Then I was thinking of putting that one. I thought, oh, it's probably too much. And I went with the green instead. So I used the green on the lower lash line. I put a little bit of that in the outer corner, just a touch, which was sort of covered by my liner anyway. And then I was thinking of going this yellow gold as the inner corner, but I thought because I've got so much color, I'll go with this one here. So the same highlighter shade that I used yesterday, it applied nicely. All shades applied really boldly, really easily. I really like the effect of it. It's great. So this is the look. You can see that the lid color is very vibrant. It was so easy to build up. You can see that I've got that green on the lower lash line. I've got that almost champagne gold as my inner corner highlight. Blended out with a couple of mattes. It's a very, very vibrant look, but it was so easy to do. It's a very striking. I really love this color. I think it has faded a tiny bit. If I pop just a tiny bit more on, you can see that, you know, you can build it up to be a little bit more vibrant if you wanted to, but it really doesn't need to use your finger. This was so easy to apply. So very, very fun, very vibrant. I really like the color combination. All right, day number 3, and I decided to pare back the look a little bit. This is my editing day. I've just washed my hair. Just wearing sort of makeup that I'm testing out and seeing what I think about it. So I'm not going sort of bold eyes like I did yesterday. I was going to do just all orange all over the lid and on the lower lash line and see how sort of wearable that is. But then I decided, no, I really want to do the combination that I spoke about on day number 1, where I have the orange on the top and the teal on the bottom. And that's all I did. So I've got a normal eyeshadow primer on. I just set the crease a little bit with sort of just a cream single shade. And then I just blended the orange in the crease, packed it on the lid, and then ran some teal on the lower lash line. And I don't actually put much primer on my lower lash line. I usually just blend out my primer with a sort of fluffy brush, and I just run the residual on the lower lash line, so it doesn't actually have much primer. So the fact that this is sort of gripped and looked quite bold is very good. It didn't take any like packing on or building up to get these colors quite vibrant. They do, if you try to blend them out, they can, like I said, be a little bit patchy, but nothing too crazy, and you can always get there to a point where it blends quite nicely. There was no fallout, there was no issues, so this is technically sort of like a 2-color look, and I think it's very, very striking. One thing I did forget to mention is I did run a teal liner pencil on my sort of waterline. So this is just one from Revlon, and it did really set off that teal. So the teal can, if you blend it out, it can almost look like a blackened teal, but I just think that pencil really sort of brought it together. So you can see how nice and vibrant the orange is. It didn't, like I said, it didn't take any packing. I didn't need to apply it with my finger. It just applied really easily on its own. You can see that it is slightly patchy, just a little bit in the crease, but it's nothing too major. Like, you can definitely deal with it. I only put a little bit of the teal on the lower lash line because I was concerned that if it required too much blending, I didn't want it to have to come too far down, so I just put the smallest amount. But I think it's a very striking look, and this is a good example of, yeah, the contrasting colors in this palette still creating a really, really beautiful look together. So I dig it. I really am loving this palette. All right, we're back with day number 4, and I've gone a green look today. You're probably surprised that it took me till day number 4 to do this, but I'm going to Mechaland today, and I thought, look, I'll hit up the greens when I'm going to Sydney. So today I used this in the crease. I did set my base in the crease with a matte sort of cream shade because I do find that these mattes have a tendency, like I said before, to sort of skip on the eye and take a bit to blend out. And this was no different. Even though I set my base just in the crease, I did find that I had to pick up a little bit, put a little bit on, pick up a little bit more, and sort of build it up in the crease, because if you apply too much, it sort of sticks to the skin and sticks to your primer and doesn't really want to blend out smoothly. You end up spending a bit of time blending, and it will eventually blend out, but I didn't have the time for that in the morning, so I just sort of built that up slowly. I put this shade all over the lid, all over the lower lash line as well, and then I went in with some of the gold, and I'll show it to you when you're close up, but just under this part of my lower lash line. And then I went in a little bit with this shade just to sort of blend out my liner a little bit. It was mainly just to blend out the liner and sort of make it work all together. So this one, and that one is what I'm wearing today, and I'll zoom in. All right, so hopefully you can see the matte in the crease there. You can see that green all over the lid. It was easy to apply. There was no fallout. I applied that bit of gold just for a pop of color there. I think it did actually really help this look, because the greens, they are murky greens, but I just think that injected a little bit of vibrancy, which I liked. So I just ran that along there. It's a really vibrant yellow gold. I'm going to do a look with this color soon, so I've still got a couple of looks to go with this palette. And then you probably can't even tell, but in the outer corner, just very slightly with a small fluffy brush, I just went in with that darker shade just to sort of make the liner and the lashes sort of work a bit better with the green. So I do like this look. I like these greens. They're the greens that I really like. I think they're very similar in effect to the Gemini palette. So if you've got the Gemini palette, you don't need the greens in this. They're not much different. But if you don't have the Gemini palette, I think, you know, you can get a very similar effect to the Gemini palette with these. So I like these greens, but like I said, I use them quite a lot with other sort of eyeshadows, so they're not super unique. They're very flattering and I love them. I do have to say though, and I'm sort of kicking myself a little bit to say this, because I sort of wanted this palette for the greens and like the teal and mixing with other colors, but I do have to say that I think the most striking color I've used so far in this palette is actually this shade here. I think it really brightens the eye. I think it looks really unique. It's like a really bold, epic color, but very wearable and flattering as well. So even though I sort of went into this palette for these, that one I think is more unique in my collection, and it's the one that I'm like, oh, I really want to go back to that. All right, we're back with day number 5, and today I decided to sort of play with the teal color a little bit more and mix it with shades that are sort of more like everyday wearable, because I do like to see if these sort of palettes can be quite bold or if you can sort of make them a little bit more wearable. So all I did today was I originally put this color just sort of all over the lid. I put a little bit of this gold in the inner corner, and then I put this teal color in the outer corner. I just used sort of like a smaller fluffy brush to do that. I didn't even pack it on. And then I just mirrored what I did on the top lash line to the bottom lash line. So I didn't put liner on because I'm not doing much today. I'm just seeing some friends for dinner and I just thought I can't be bothered. So even though this does have color in it, it's more of a pared down look for this sort of palette. I didn't use any colors to blend it out. I just used a clean fluffy brush to sort of blend in the colors, and that's all I've done. So I'll zoom in. I also wanted to mention that I used that eyeliner that I used the other day. I just thought I'd show it to you. It's this one. It's the cream gel in the shade, I think it's Private Island. I can't read that backwards. Yeah, in the shade Private Island. So I just ran that on my waterline. So hopefully you can see that I've got that sort of shimmery brown, I've got the gold, I've got the matte teal. They all work really nicely together, and you could take any of these sort of elements out and they would still work. So for example, if you didn't want the teal, those two colors would make a really nice sort of brown, warm gold sort of shimmery eye. So you could definitely take out the teal. If you wanted to take out the gold to make it a little bit just cooler tones, so the teal and the brown, you could totally do that. Or you could even take out the brown and just make it more bold by having the teal that meets the gold. So you can see that this palette has a variety of different ways you can use it, and they all sort of work really well together. All right, last check-in for the Coloured Rain palette, and I'm ready to conclude it. Unfortunately, I'm concluding on a day that is overcast and horrible, so I've got some artificial lighting going on, so this is not going to be as accurate color-wise as the other ones were, but it is what it is. So today on my eyes, I wanted to play up some of the golds, so I applied this one on the inner half of my eye, that one on the outer half. I blended it out with the orange, and I also packed a little bit of the orange on the outer corner. So that's what I've got. I just wanted to go more of a sort of wearable, that's not the right term. I think a lot of these shades are very wearable, but more the sort of less colorful looks to see what I can create as just like a sort of more nudie kind of look. So that's what I've done, and I'll zoom in and show it to you. All right, so hopefully you can see that I've got the two golds on. They did mix together quite a lot. So on the inner half, there's that sort of more silvery gold. Then I've put a lot of that yellow gold, but I covered a little bit of it with the orange just to make it look, I don't know, a little bit more flattering. I put the orange in the crease, a little bit of orange on the lower lash line, and that's it there. So these applied very foiled like. These applied quite foiled to the point where I wouldn't recommend these as just like a wash of color on a daily basis because they're too bold. I did put a bit of brown eyeliner, like liquid liner on, but it almost applied a little bit patchy because it was going over such like chunky foiled shimmers. I had to put half a strip of false lashes on just to hide the fact that the liner looked kind of patchy because it just wouldn't go smoothly over the eyeshadow. So it is a very, very foiled eyeshadow. These are not subtle. You're not going to get a wash of like champagne color with them. They're very bold. And I just thought I'd demonstrate. I've got just a fluffy brush with some of that champagne gold. You can see just applying it, it's super foiled. Like that is extreme for no primer on my hand, no glitter glue, no nothing. I'm going to also take the red. So on the other side, you can see that red. So you can see how these apply just with just a standard eyeshadow brush. They apply beautifully, but they're very bold. All right, so after using this palette for 6 days, what did I think of it? I'm gonna have to say I love this palette to the point where I want to buy most other Coloured Rain eyeshadow palettes because it was actually funny. I was going to the airport the other day with Hayley, and she mentioned that she used the Queen of Hearts palette for the first time that day. And whenever you are going to an event or you're in a rush or something and you're using a different makeup item for the first time, it's always a risk. But she was like, oh, they applied so beautifully and looked so great. And I'm like, yes, I know, like these palettes are fantastic. So we had a bit of a chat about it. And then when we had arrived in Sydney, we bumped into our friend Shanae, and she said to me, what do you have on your eyes? And because she commented on her Instagram thing where I was talking about this, I'm like, oh, you know, and she goes, oh my God, I love that palette. And then we all started talking about how great this formula was and how surprised we were. So the fact that there were 3 of us and we're all just like, oh my God, first impressions, these are great. It really says something about the formula, and it really says something about the brand. And I'm just really intrigued to try more from the brand because I do have one other palette that I'll show you in a second, but I want them all because the formula is really, really good. It's super easy to apply. The shimmers pick up very easily on a brush. They apply boldly to the eye without any like sticky base or glitter glue. The mattes are pretty good. I think the pigmentation's nice, but you do, with some colors, need to sort of start slow and build it up because it can cling on the base a little bit, but you can sort of correct it if that happens. You just need to sort of work at it, but building it up slowly is a better option. I particularly love this color story. I think often when I find palettes that have a mishmash of like warms and cools and sort of nudes, often the colors don't work super well together, but these colors work really well together. Of course, there are colors here that are sort of will muddy together if you layer them. So for example, if you applied this and you blended it out with the green, of course it's going to start making brown because that's the nature of opposite colors. Same as like these two, like I kept them quite separate on my eye and they looked really striking together. But if you started layering them, they're going to start looking brown. It is what it is. But all the tones do work well together in a look. So whether you pair those, whether you pair those, whether you pair those or whatever it might be, the colors, if you keep them quite separate, they all look really flattering in one look, which I love. I'd also, creating 6 looks, I didn't need to reach for any other eyeshadow or any other palette. The only thing I might have done is reach for a cream color to set my base a little bit to help the mattes blend over the top without clinging onto the base. So that's the only thing I reached for in these 6 days. And I can think of a multitude of other looks that I want to create using this. I want to pair those two. I want to pair this one with the gold. I want to try that with the green. There's so many other combinations I can see myself using. And this review could have gone on for 12 days, but I just decided that I need to move on. I need to move on, but I love the formula. I love the colors, and I think they're all very vibrant and they all hold their own and look really, really beautiful on the eye. And you don't really need to work at it or learn a certain technique to make these work. They all just work and look really flattering. My favorite shade is probably the red because it's very, very striking. But I love all the other colors. The only thing that I want to say about this is you can pare it down to make some more sort of toned down colorful looks, but they're all very, very bold. So to be honest, I adore this palette and it is what I wanted the Juvia's Place Tribe palette to be. I did do a review similar to this on this palette and a lot of people didn't like my conclusion. I didn't love the formula as much. I just thought it was average. And I also found that even though you do have some wearable colors, some warm colors, some cool colors, similar to this same sort of concept, these clashed with each other and created swampy, gross looking looks that I didn't like. These complemented each other. There's a huge difference. And if you were tossing up between the two, I would say go this one any day of the week. So yeah, to the people that were like, you were expecting too much from this palette, I actually wasn't. I had high hopes for it that it didn't meet, but this delivered perfectly. So I didn't have high hopes. I was just looking at the wrong brand. So you can definitely have a palette that packs a punch, is wearable. You can create full looks with just the one palette without having to reach for other palettes. And you can create a variety of looks, whether they're warm, whether they're bright, whether they're cool, whether they're more like neutral. There are palettes out there and 9-pan palettes that can do it. This one just did it. It smashed it out of the park. The formula was way better than Juvia's Place, and the color combinations looked gorgeous together. So I love, love, love this palette. When I do these reviews, often I find shades that I find are a little bit too similar, and I'm like, they could have cut this out, they could have made this smaller. In this instance, I actually would have loved to have seen this to be a 12-pan palette instead of a 9-pan palette, because I think adding some more mattes to this would have elevated its versatility even more, even though it is very, very versatile. So if I had to add anything, I would have loved maybe another row of mattes. I would have loved maybe a chartreuse yellowy mustard color, because those really blend these colors out beautifully. They blend these colors out beautifully. They blend that out beautifully. These out beautifully. So I think a chartreuse or a murky yellowy mustard color would have gone really well. I would have also loved to have seen a cooler tone transition shade, because right now we've got a warm tone transition shade, a green, we've got a teal, or you've got a dark brown. Whereas I think adding more of a sort of maybe a mauvey gray sort of color would have given more versatility in this bottom half. So you could definitely take a gold, for example, and instead of making it really warm like I did today, you can add a mauve and change the color entirely. So all of a sudden you're adding another element that can tweak these looks to make them completely different. So I think they should have had a cooler tone, non-colorful transition color. Same goes for the deep shade. We've got cool toned, we've got a brown, and we've got a teal. I would have loved to have seen like a really dark berry red just down here or something, because once again, it could vamp out these sort of colors really well. You could add a different element to these nudes where you're using a berry rather than just using a cool tone shade to deepen it. So I think if this added a few more mattes, and not even just nude mattes, like colorful mattes, but just it would add a lot more versatility to this palette. And funnily enough, I do actually have my only other palette I have from Coloured Rain, and I've only used this once, is actually the Rust palette, and these have similar sort of shades that I'm looking for. So you've got a bit of a mustard chartreuse, you've got a dark, beautiful berry matte, and you've got, this is not as cool toned as I was thinking, but you do have a nice sort of nude, cooler tone shade. So I think the combination of these two are going to vastly expand my potential of being able to use this on a daily basis with more nude sort of looks, or, you know, pairing it together to create just variety. So imagine, for example, using this shade or that shade on my crease today. It just changes the color entirely. Imagine the potential of using this with these kind of colors up the top. It would be gorgeous. So that's how I'm going to probably use this. I'm going to have these both open at the same time, but I would have loved to seen a larger palette with these sort of colors, because the formula is great, the colors are great. I love it as on its own, but I love it even more with a bit more option. So this is by far one of the most impressive palettes I've used in the last maybe year or so, and I try a lot of palettes. I loved the color combinations. I loved the effect of it. I loved how bold but also flattering they were on the eye, because you can often find colorful palettes and you're like, okay, they're fun and they're bold, but they don't flatter my makeup. They just look quite out there and like I'm making a statement, but these are actually flattering as well as colorful. The formula's great, and it's really made me want to go out and purchase the Queen of Hearts palette, which I'm going to do. And I think they've got a Cheers to the Beauty palette that I'm thinking of buying as well, maybe a couple more of these smaller palettes. So I'm going to definitely check out Coloured Rain. They are so heavily on my radar now because this palette was almost perfection. I would give it a solid A if I was grading it. A few more mattes, and maybe the mattes being a little bit more blendable, it would be A++ for sure. It's a gorgeous palette. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that review, and I'll see you guys next time for another palette review. Bye.